Another important contributor to fatigue is cardiovascular drift, and really just cardiovascular strain. And we're going to touch on dehydration in this section as well. So, cardiovascular drift is characterized by a gradual increase in heart rate, and to compensate, there is a decrease in stroke volume. There is stable or slightly reduced cardiac output, and then there is a rising perceived exertion at a constant workload. So, that is the characterization for cardiovascular drift. Now, after 10, 15 minutes of sustained exercise in the heat, especially when hydration is inadequate, cardiovascular drift is very, very common. So the main contributors are, as the body starts to heat, there's peripheral vasodilation, so more blood is redirected to the skin, and this is to help cool the body. There is plasma volume loss, and this is largely due to sweating, leads to dehydration, and that's because the body, again, is trying to prioritize cooling. And then there's increased heart rate. And to compensate for these changes, the heart has to beat faster to maintain the same output. But that comes at a higher oxygen cost and less efficiency. So all of these compounding effects lead to a cardiovascular strain. And this is really what we see here in this chart. So you start at the top, there's physical exertion in the heat. This is going to lead to an increase in metabolic heat production. And then what does that lead to? Well, that leads to increase in heat storage. That's going to result in needing to sweat more. Sweating more, if we go on the left side, is going to result in more fluid going into plasma volume, and then negative fluid displacement. All that's also contributing. And then you have the cardiovascular responses. So blood flow is redirected more to the skin, less to the heart, less volume coming back, and then you end up with lower stroke volume, higher heart rate, and therefore changes in cardiac output. So the consequences for performance are both aerobic and anaerobic. So earlier lactate threshold onset, reduced VO2 max in hot temperatures, impaired muscle perfusion, limiting oxygen delivery, and faster onset of peripheral fatigue. So there really is a lot of downstream consequences. Now, an important note is the role of dehydration. So even just 1 to 2% body mass loss due to fluid loss can significantly increase cardiovascular strain. And the reasons being there's reduced plasma volume, it impairs thermoregulation. That's going to result in elevated core temperature, increased rate of perceived exhaustion, decreases time to exhaustion. It really is just a cascade effect. So if not addressed, dehydration will accelerate the cardiovascular drift that's experienced during exercise in the heat. So to mitigate that, it's important hydration. Start off hydrated, monitor fluid loss if possible, and continue to stay hydrated throughout. Cooling breaks, active and passive recovery breaks as well. So using cooling in all the different modes and mechanisms depending on your environment and your context. Do everything you can. Examples of this include palm cooling, fan-assisted evaporation. Again, it's really going to depend on your specific circumstances. And then to the best of your ability in programming, encourage heat training and give athletes the opportunity to get accustomed to whatever type of exercise that they're going to be put under, where they will be experiencing this type of thermal stress.